going on, everybody? Welcome into PFF's betting preview here for the 2025 NFL Draft, as it is draft day. We wanted to save this show here for you for the morning of the NFL Draft because, betting markets change a lot. And so we wanted to give you a little last-second betting advice here for you and how you might be able to bet the 2025 NFL Draft. Mason Cameron, Ben Linsey here with me. I'm Trevor Sikkema. Mason, I practiced a lot because the couple of times I was like, oh, just intro the guys. I called you Mason Graham. I've said the name Mason Graham so many times that in my head I was like, that's not his last name.
I like that, though. I like that.
I got it.
I've got something to live up to then.
Mason Graham?
Yeah.
Do you have longer arms than Mason Graham?
No, not quite.
Probably close.
Have you measured your arms?
Probably close.
Not enough.
Want it to be.
But I guess we'll see. Can we get a tape measure from the back out here?
You just mid-answer. You're just judging the wingspan over there. But fellas, it's good to be on the desk here with you. Obviously, the morning of the NFL Draft. Mason, you're coming all the way from Denver.
Yeah.
So glad that you made it, brother.
I'm excited
to
be here.
How you doing?
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here. We're gonna make some money today, and it's gonna be a great day. So I'm excited.
Absolutely love it. Ben, you're from 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
Glad that you made it in safe as well.
Long trip. I'm excited to act like I know what's going on in GM's heads for 30 minutes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You do?
Everyone does.
Of course.
Everyone does.
Yeah. So, no, this is going to be fun. We're going to take a look at the betting markets as it stands this morning and obviously be able to give you guys a little bit of an edge here as we go into night one of the 2025 NFL Draft. If you guys don't have a PFF Plus subscription, now is the time to get one. You get 25% off using the promo code DRAFT25, and that gets you everything. It gets you the PFF Draft Guide. It gets you the fully unlocked mock draft simulator. You can see all of that great data that GMs in the NFL use. You can see that for yourself, not just on draft weekend, but all year round as well. So if you don't have a subscription right now, now is a great time to get one and get 25% off using that promo code DRAFT25. So what we're going to do here on the show is we're going to give you some of our favorite bets. We're each going to give you 3 of our favorite bets as the betting market stand this morning, obviously subject to change depending on when you are watching this video. And obviously when we give our expert advice, the lines will move, right? Vegas and every single book is paying attention. They're live in the chat. Appreciate you guys watching. But they will move after this. But this is the betting advice that we have right now. Ben, I'll start with you. What's your first bet that you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, so my general draft bet philosophy is I am not going to bet on anything that's minus money. There's so much uncertainty. Yeah, so I'm taking shots.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm trying to make some money here. My first bet, Benjamin Morrison to be drafted in the first round. Plus 950 on DraftKings this morning. And a lot of people have talked about if he didn't have the injury concerns, right? If his season didn't end early with the hip injury last year, he would be a first-round pick, more of a surefire first-round pick. Daniel Jeremiah said that on Path to the Draft recently, and he said, I'm not sure he doesn't climb all the way back into the first round even with that injury. And if you look at Morrison and kind of his production at Notre Dame as a true freshman in 2022, as a true sophomore in 2023, 80-plus PFF coverage grades both years in a man-heavy scheme.
Yep.
Right? And if you're looking in the NFL, every defensive coordinator would like to be able to play more man coverage.
Of course.
It's just they don't always have the guys, right? You think of Brian Flores coming over from Miami, ton of man coverage in New England. Gets to Minnesota, run a ton of zone just because they don't have the guys. But Morrison has already shown in a Notre Dame defense that played man coverage at a top 5 rate in 2022 and 2023 that he produced 80-plus coverage grades, does a really good job of kind of turning and running it with guys and keeping his head back on the ball. I think the hip injury, he had a personal pro day a couple days ago. I think that's not enough of a concern that some of these teams at the back end of the first round are going to take a chance on someone like him at around 10-1.
And the tape is good. The tape last year was really good. The tape this year, I thought against Texas A&M before he got hurt was pretty good. And they actually were using him not just in man coverage, but also inside out. He was used a little bit in the slot too. I think the teams could absolutely recognize that. I look at a team like the Washington Commanders as a potential landing spot for him there at the back end of the first round, because this is a team that very clearly with last year, they draft Mike Samerstill in the second round, and they're not afraid to play him anywhere. And Dan Quinn wants to be aggressive in sort of what he does. He wants to have players that when they call man coverage, they have the ability to do it. And I think that Morrison, talent-wise, is worthy of a first-round selection. And from what I've heard, I've tried to ask some people that would be a little bit in the know with this situation, with this injury. Obviously, it's not ideal when a corner, which, they're flipping their hips all the time, it's very important to the job, has a hip injury. But it seems as though He's going to be all right. Like, it seems as though he's going to make a full recovery from that. You mentioned that he had his personal pro day. So I like this bet. I like this bet simply because I think the tape justifies it, right? It's not just about hype or scarcity. This is a player that is worth a first-round selection there. So, Mason, any thoughts on that, or just get to your next one?
I completely agree. And when you look at what Notre Dame did last year with how much they ran cover one and what that means you need to ask of your corners, I think that this is a guy that proved that he can step up to the plate. And I completely agree with the analysis there.
So, what's your first bet that you'd like to
and to lead into that, too, I love the Bills to take a corner in round one. We're looking at probably about plus 275 right there on DraftKings.
Yeah.
And the current odds on favorite right now for the Bills is to select somebody from the defensive line, and it makes sense. It's a strong class, but you could argue that they're much better up front than what we're going to get in the secondary. When you look at what happened last year, Christian Benford, he got banged up in the AFC Championship game. They put Kyer Elam out there, and he struggled. He got picked on quite a bit and then eventually got sent packing. And the end result was at the end of the season, the Bills finished with the 31st ranked PFF coverage grade. That's a 31.8. That is a very, very low grade in comparison. At the top end, the Eagles had a 90-plus coverage grade.
Yeah.
So when you want to get to be the best, when you want to compete with the best, you got to elevate your game. The only corner that had a coverage grade above 62 for them last year was Benford. So they signed Trey White. I mean, between injuries, subpar play, I'm just not sure that that's the answer. So I love for them to take a corner there. Maybe Morrison's the answer.
Yeah, and along those lines, the first one that I'll bring to the table is Trey Amos to be a first-rounder, sort of in the same mold that you talked about with Benjamin Morrison. This isn't as high of odds, but it's plus 100, so it's still, a plus odds there for him to be a back-end of the first-round guy. I think that the Buffalo Bills could absolutely be a spot for them. The more that I think about it, the more that I did mock drafts, it actually makes more sense for Buffalo. If you say that they have a corner need and a defensive line need, go corner at the back end of the first round and be able to draft defensive linemen later. At the back end of the second round, third round, wherever you want to draft it, you could even double dip. You're not really going to find, at least it would be more scarce, more of a risk to find a corner that you feel comfortable starting rather than drafting one at the back end of the first round. So sort of along those same lines, I think that Trey Amos being a first round pick, that's a landing spot for him in Buffalo. Perhaps Benjamin Morrison, but I also look at teams like, you mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles, right? The Eagles are another team that I look at a lot of those corner bets as like, guys who could go into the first round, or just, it seems as though the betting markets are leaning more towards defensive line for a lot of these teams, for Buffalo, for Philadelphia, for the Washington Commanders. And I understand all of that, but I also look at the Eagles, and that's another team where I think that could absolutely be a cornerback landing spot. A Benjamin Morrison, a Trey Amos, a Maxwell Harrison if he gets to that point. Like, I really do think that the Eagles know secondary scores are a big reason why they're Super Bowl champs here today. And so they don't want to fall short of that with Darius Slay no longer being on the team. So, I didn't know that we would all have cornerbacks as sort of like the first combination here of our bets. But I think that it just goes to show there could be some money to be made here with cornerbacks either sneaking into the first round, or you sprinkle in a little something on those teams, again, the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Buffalo Bills.
And if you just think of the secondary in general, right, it's hard to have too many good defensive backs.
Right.
Because it's a position group where if you have one weak link, they're going to get targeted. Right? So building up that depth, especially at the back end of the first round, makes sense for a lot of these contending teams.
And there's so many teams that are trying to stack their roster with like 2, 3, 4 good wide receivers. Defenses have to be able to answer.
Yeah, they can spread you thin out in the secondary, and as Ben said, they're going to pick on you if you're struggling there. And I love Trey Amos there too as well. That's another bet that I highlighted in my piece over at PFF.com. So everybody go check that one out. Just some bets to target. And I completely agree. I think he would also be a great fit there in Buffalo as well.
All right, before we get to our next round of best bets here, want to talk about the staple of a fantastic outfit, and that is a hat. I'm not wearing one, but I could have very well been here for this show, because a Melin hat can be used for all different scenarios, whether you're tailgating, going out and just hanging out with friends on a date night, whether you're out in the wilderness hiking, whatever it is. I mean, they got hats for every single occasion. And the best part about this hat, you know how it is. Sometimes you look at a hat and you go, man, that's a great hat. And you pick it up and you go, man, this is built really well. I feel like it's going to be built to last. Then you put it on your head and squeezing too much, or it's pinching you in certain areas, and it's not comfortable. It's itchy. Like you can tell, like it was made for structure, not for comfort. Then you have the hats that very lightweight, maybe very comfortable. You can't even feel them on your head, but they're very flimsy. They don't have that shape. Melin's the perfect blend of both. It really is. They've got two really great collections that they're promoting right now. Thermal collection, which will help keep you warm, and then the hydro collection. I think that's the one that you're going to get the most use out of this summer, whether you're by the beach or jumping in the lake or just going for a run, whatever it is. These hats, no sweat stains, no smell to them. They will look the same as the day that you took it out of the box, months, maybe even years after you have the hat. I mean, it's just a fantastic hat. I've got two of them myself. They are built to last 5 times longer than any hat. It's made with great materials. If you are looking for the world's most durable hat, look no further. You got to check out Melin, MELIN.com. You can put these hats to the test for yourself. They've got all different sort of styles that you can see on the screen here. Just go to Melin.com. I guarantee that you will be able to find a hat that you absolutely love that's going to last you a long time and is going to be a staple of whatever your outfits are. All right, let's get to some more best bets that we've got here on the show. Ben, what's your next one?
It's one I think we both like, and it's Kelvin Banks, drafted at 9th
Yeah,
overall,
baby. Tell him about
the
it.
New Orleans Saints.
Let's go.
And it seems like Banks has been rising a little bit recently, right? McShay's mock draft, and I think Jeremiah had him at 6 to the Raiders, which is higher than over Membu.
Over Membu.
So obviously, if that happens, this bet doesn't hit. So let's hope not. But I think the Saints are in a position where there's a lot of buzz with quarterback over the last couple months. It seems like that's dying down a little bit. And I think when you look at the Saints, they're not in a position. If you draft a quarterback right now, you're putting them in a position to fail.
100%.
Right? So I think offensive line is the prudent pick for them. They declined Trevor Penning's 5th-year option recently. All right, if you draft Kelvin Banks, there's a scenario where you can play him at left tackle. You can move Fuanga back to right tackle and kick Penning inside the guard. And Banks, just from a profile standpoint, former 5-star, 3-year starter at Texas, just turned 21, right? So he's starting as a true freshman, had the lowest pressure rate allowed of any left tackle in the Power 5 over the last 2 years, on more pass protection snaps than any other left tackle in the FBS. That's the profile of a guy who typically gets drafted in the top 10.
Yeah.
All right? And there's been some buzz connecting the Saints to offensive line. Right? Charles Robinson at Yahoo Sports recently put out his Draft Nuggets piece that said he's been anchored to quarterback for the Saints for a long time, but he thinks if Genty's not there, it's going to be offensive line now. I don't think Genty's going to be there. So I think there's a decent chance that they go Kelvin Banks here if he's on the board. It's plus 850, so you're getting pretty good odds there for him to the Saints.
I agree. I think that if you're bringing a new quarterback, or even Spencer Rattler, Derek Carr, whoever it is, into New Orleans right now with that offensive line, they will fail. And we saw that last year. This was the lowest pass-blocking offensive line in the NFL. And we heard earlier this week they didn't pick up Trevor Penning's 5th-year option. We didn't think that was going to be the case, but you don't have any long-term answers at offensive tackle opposite Talize Fuanga. If you draft Kelvin Banks, like you were talking about, you can move Fuanga back to right tackle where he played so well when he was at Oregon State. You can kick Trevor Penning into guard and sort of do the same thing that the Giants did with Evan Neal and that the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Jets sort of did with Mekhi Becton. It's like, all right, you didn't really make it work at offensive tackle. Let's try you out at guard. It's obviously something that didn't work out for Evan Neal, but you would rather try to get something out of the guy who's still on a rookie contract to see if you want to keep him. For the Jets, they didn't end up keeping Mekhi, but then he was great as a guard for the Eagles. And so, to me, it just sets up the correct scenario. And Mickey Loomis, the general manager for the Saints, sometimes we don't really know what he's going to do. When I look at the Saints and the odds for certain players going to number 9 overall, the lowest odds when I checked yesterday was Mykel Williams, and it was plus 300. I mean, none of these other spots are, if they are plus money for the top guy, it's like plus 110, plus 150. This is plus 300 for the guy that has the best odds to go to this spot. It just shows that nobody really knows what's going to happen with the New Orleans Saints. But I agree with Charles Robinson's Nuggets piece, and even if you listen to Mickey Loomis, it sounds as though this is the way they want to go. I think if this is a team that's going to be drafting a quarterback, it's not going to be at number 9 overall. They're going to be a team that could trade back up. They could use that number 40 pick that they have in the second round, move up for a quarterback maybe if they want to do something like that. I don't think it's going to be at number 9. I think they need to capitalize on some of the good offensive linemen that are in this class, guys that can play offensive tackle. And I agree. I think this is great value for Kelvin Banks, whose stock seems to be on the rise the closer we get to the draft getting kicked off.
I completely agree there. And when you look at the Saints team, they need to better build a foundation for them to build upon. And their cap situation has been a struggle for the last few years. And if you bring a rookie quarterback, just from a team building standpoint, you want to maximize that rookie wage scale in that, cheaper contract for your quarterback. If you bring your quarterback in right now, you risk wasting a lot of that while you try to build up your team. So I think that's the right move. Build up your foundation and then go attack passer later.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler was a guy who, day 3 pick, obviously, but there was a lot of people who were like, I kind of like Spencer Rattler. Good preseason.
Right.
And then he gets thrown out there, and it's woof, like brutal watching the Saints play offense last year.
And they need to lean into. We've been asking them to lean into a rebuild for a while now, right? Since Drew Brees certainly retired, we're like, okay, here they go. Now they're gonna turn the page, and then they signed Derek Carr. And it's like, okay, I guess not. But they certainly have to turn the page and have a rebuilding mindset with their offensive and defensive line, because the picks that they have made, the guys that they have brought in, have not been good enough. And I think just listening to Mickey Loomis and when he was talking at the pre-draft press conference, you could tell he's a little pissed off about it, right? He understands they're not where they need to be in the trenches, and I really do think they're going to emphasize it. It's just sort of a matter of which offensive lineman do you think makes it to number 9, because I believe, Kelvin Banks, what was it? You said plus 850 on FanDuel. I think Armand Membu is like plus 1,300. So if you think they're going to go offensive line, sprinkle a little bit on both of those guys, because I think it's most likely one of them is going to be available for them at number 9. And if you think it's going to be offensive line, which we do, there's some money to be made there for
And then you can't lose.
Of course, it's
definitely one of those two guys.
Can't lose is definitely a phrase that you should say during betting. Yeah, absolutely. Mason, what's your next one you got?
Trevor, we were talking about it a little bit yesterday, and I was asking you about some of your flag plant guys, some guys that you would stake your careers on in this class. And I think one of the guys that I am stamping my stamp of approval on this year is going to be Jayden Higgins. I just love his game, and for him to go drafted in round 1, you can get it about plus 700 on DraftKings, and I absolutely love that there. His stock has been steadily creeping up into that first round conversation, just as that prototypical X receiver that a ton of teams would just absolutely kill to add to their offense. Great ball skills. His biggest knock has been his long speed, but to be frank, I don't really think he needs it necessarily. He plays really well without it. Great length. It amplifies his contested catch ability, natural hands, good route running ability from various alignments. That's stuff that you want to see from a guy. And when we look at his grading aspect and his grading profile, he was the highest graded outside receiver in this class at 89.6. That's above even Tet McMillan. That's going to be something that teams will take note of and will eye. And I think you could really see his name being called in the back half of the draft right there, in the back half of the order, to a team like maybe Detroit, maybe Washington. I really, really love the fit for both of them, and I really love Higgins. So.
It felt like, I thought he had a good Senior Bowl. And then the Combine obviously showcased really great athleticism. Yeah. And right after the Combine, it felt like there was a lot of hype for him. I started to see him in mock drafts to the Chargers at 22, to the Green Bay Packers at 23 as somebody who would fit their thresholds and their profile for how they often draft wide receivers, maybe not in the first round, because we know that they never draft wide receivers in the first round, but it was like, if they're going to do it, this guy actually fits. So, we were talking about him in that range, and then it's sort of cooled down as of late, and I think we've leaned more into trench players getting into the back half of the first round, but perhaps that's just sort of recency over the last couple of weeks, just talking about guys that could get in there. I still do think that, hey, plus 700 is a good number for Jayden Higgins, and I can't remember what odds I got it at, but that's a bet that I made about a month ago, and because I was like, okay, I think that this guy has a decent chance to be a first-round pick, and so he's got the production, he's got the size that you like, he's got that athleticism to him, and so those are the things that the NFL wants to check those boxes for receivers, so I like taking a bet there. The full pun intended. You know what? You guys gave some ones with some juiced odds here. I'll go with an easy one. I'll bring in a soft one, but I did want to just talk about it like this. Under 2.5 running backs that we have going in round 1, minus 180. So it's minus money, but if it's still a bet you're pretty confident in, obviously you could feel good about it. I think Ashton Genty's going somewhere in the top 10. I don't really know where the next running back goes. We hear love for obviously Omari and Hampton, but that's sort of cooled as of late. He could be the pick to the Broncos at 20, but I've more recently heard that it could be a wide receiver over a running back. Could be a guy like Travion Henderson as well, who we've heard get first-round buzz, but even if Travion Henderson goes in the first round, there's not a guarantee Omari and Hampton will go in the first round. Basically, the only scenario that I could find of 3 running backs going in the first round is if Denver takes one at number 20, and then the Commanders also take one at number 29. Outside of that, where else are we really getting one? The Rams wouldn't do it. Houston wouldn't do it. Baltimore wouldn't do it. I don't think Detroit would do it, although, they draft best player available, so maybe, but I don't think they would do it. Buffalo's not going to do it. I don't think Kansas City does it. For as much as Kansas City wants to add another running back at some point in this draft, I don't think they do it in the first round. Yeah. So I just don't see a lot of landing spots for running back to be the case. You could throw Minnesota in there, but they trade for Jordan Mason. They bring back Aaron Jones. Are those long-term options for them? No, but are you really going to stick at pick 24 when you don't have another pick until 97?
Four total picks.
Right, 4 total picks, and your first-round pick is going to be on a running back? For a general manager that is very analytically focused and driven, I don't think that's happening. So all that to say, just running through a lot of scenarios, I don't see many realities where 3 running backs go in the first round. Even though we've talked about a handful of them potentially being first-round picks, I like that under 2.5 number. I think that we're sticking at 2.
Yeah, I like that too. And the Chiefs, I've seen them linked to Travion Henderson, and on paper, that makes sense. The explosiveness is what they were missing from their run game last year. But that would be a really tough sell when a couple years ago you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round.
Right.
It didn't work. And
you can take swings again, but again, you have unknowns on the offensive line. You need things on the defensive line. Both of those positions are going to have somebody there that you probably feel good about. It would just be a lot for me to say, let's take Travion Henderson here. So I keep going back to that.
Yeah, the class is so deep.
It is.
I was just about to say, when you look at the wide view of the entirety of the class, you have to understand that I think that's going to push backs down the board, not up, because teams are going to weigh their options and take other needs that are maybe lighter in the class, as opposed to reaching for a running back when you could get one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round that you're essentially very happy with, that you can add to your rotation, and that is going to be a contributor for your team early.
Yeah. All right, we've each got one more that we're bringing here. Bets for the 2025 NFL Draft here, if you guys are just joining us. Before we get to those, got to talk to you about Cherry Bunny. It's the performance drink that is fueling the healthly revolution. No matter what kind of active lifestyle that you're living, whether you're training for a marathon, whether you're doing CrossFit 5 days a week, or maybe you're just getting a couple of steps in around the neighborhood, just doing a couple of walks a few times a week, this product can really help you out. Natural products and ingredients, no sugars added to it. The tart cherries that it's made with, highest antioxidant fruit and vegetable in the world, which means it's got all sorts of benefits. Reduces soreness, helps increase recovery, contains naturally occurring melatonin to help improve some sleep, and it supports immunity as well. It's used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every single NFL team uses this product, and you can too. Use the promo code PFF20 to get 20% off your order over at cherrybunny.com, which you can check it out. It's not just the recovery stuff either. They have stuff that is specifically can help you sleep. They've got things for energy right before a workout, and it's gummies, it's drinks, it's little gel packs. It's a lot. However you like to recover, whatever form you like, Cherry Bunny's got you there. Products are also available on Amazon, cherrybunny.com, and retailers nationwide, including places like Publix, Kroger, so you can check that out, but you can get 20% off if you use PFF20 over at cherrybunny.com. All right, Ben, what's the last Ben's best bet? Little triple B there.
Triple B.
Little triple B here.
We're going to take our biggest swing on this one in terms of odds.
I thought the Kelvin Banks was the big swing. Yeah. You're trying to retire.
We're going 22-1. It's retirement or nothing.
I was going to say, you're trying to make this your last show. I like working with you, Ben.
And I'm going, Bears fans might hate this, but I'm going to go Shemar Stewart, drafted at 10th overall. Okay. 22-1 on DraftKings.
Wow.
And the logic here is, I think there's a decent chance that the top 3 tackles are off the board before 10, assuming the Bears stay there with Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks. I think Ashton Genty's going to be off the board. I think the Bears would have to trade up to get that. So if you just look at Stewart and kind of how general manager Ryan Poles has drafted since he's taken over, Cleve Analytics did a study on GM trends since 2019. Ryan Poles has the highest average relative athletic score, RAS score, of first and second round picks in that sample, 9.5. Obviously, that lines up with Shemar Stewart. He had the highest RAS score of any defensive end since 1987. And Dennis Allen, the new defensive coordinator for the Bears, he typically looks for those bigger pocket-pushing edges who can defend the run. Like, you look at Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Carl Granderson, Trey Hendrickson, all above 260 pounds, all above 50th percentile at the position. And that kind of lines up with Shemar Stewart as well, right, as that prototypical size, edge with good length, a guy who improved his run defense last year, 88.2 run defensive grade, was fourth highest among all FBS edge rushers with 500-plus snaps. So I think if you look at what Ryan Poles has done, if you look at what Dennis Allen looks for in his defensive ends, it's a spot where they could take a swing on Stewart, and you're getting 22-1. Right, so big potential payout, and I think it has a better chance than that of happening.
I think the Dennis Allen connection is a good one, right? Because I think that when we think of who the Saints are going to draft, we just had this conversation about, okay, well, we were talking a lot of offensive line, but if it's defensive lineman, I've had this conversation with myself, is it Shemar Stewart? Is it Michael Williams? I know that it's somebody, from their past that's going to be very heavy-handed, has a lot of length to them, a lot of strength, run defense, things like that. Now the defensive coordinator, who was really a catalyst for a lot of those picks, is now in Chicago. And so I do think that it's at least enough dots to connect to throw something on a, 22-1 odds
22-1,
for Shemar Stewart. And so obviously a long shot at 22-1, but one that there's enough logic there where you feel okay about it. What do you think?
I appreciate that.
Well, you're making me think about it. I thought you were crazy when you initially put this in the rundown for the show sheet, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I kind of think this has a chance here.
Well, and when you talk about Stewart, I think the production wasn't quite there as a pass rusher, and I think that concerns some people. The grading wasn't quite there. But when you look at what guys can get as a run defender, that gets you on the field early, and I think that can make you a contributor early and is worthy of a top 10 type of pick, because defensive coordinators think, I can take this guy, I can mold him into what I want, and we can get him on the field early. So I really like the value there as well.
What's your next bet? What's your last one, actually?
My last one doesn't have quite as much value as 22-1 there.
Mine doesn't either, so don't feel bad about it.
James Pearce, his over-under for draft position is going to be 31.5. I took the under on that. It was originally even yesterday. It's now moved to minus 140 as of this morning. And this is a guy that is a talent that I do not see falling out of the first round. And you get a little bit of extra value by taking him at 31.5 as opposed to just being a first-round pick. The character concerns, obviously they're there. They've been talked about, but he's undoubtedly one of the most talented pass rushers in a draft, absolutely chock full of them. He's twitched up, wicked first step, good bend, tough speed to power transition, and just like I said, it's the type of talent that teams are willing to bet on at the next level. When you just look at some of his grading metrics, it's just phenomenal to look at. 92.4 PFF pass rush grade versus true pass sets over the last 2 seasons. That's 96th percentile. He had a 99th percentile in pass rush win rate over that span. 13.4 pass rush productivity. That's the highest of any edge rusher in this class. I think those metrics combined with what we see on tape just screams first round talent. And I think teams at the back end of the draft there are going to be very, very interested in weighing their options. For me, this strikes as a best player available for many teams' boards as we get further down the order.
I think he should absolutely be a first round pick. I really do. I mean, if you even go to the athletic scores that we saw from him at the combine, 1.56 10-yard split, 4.47 40-yard dash. That's 93rd percentile and 97th percentile for the position. If you go to the broad jump, I believe it was a 10'3" broad jump, 84th percentile. The vert was only 31 inches. I don't know if he didn't train for it, or I don't really know what happened there because it doesn't line up with how he plays with the other athletic scores at all. So that one was a little weird, but I kind of throw that one out because you see the explosiveness on the tape, and it is. I can understand that okay, there might be some character concerns. We haven't talked to him, so it's not like we can confirm that ourselves or anything like that, but we have heard that. We've heard those rumors. We've heard those rumblings. Still, man, I mean, like, dude gets after the passer. So unless you think he's like a terrible human being, I think it's crazy that we're not talking about him as a first-round pick. So I like that. I like betting on the talent overall. I like the fact that you're thinking about all these teams at the back end of the first round and saying to yourself, somebody has to look at him and just go, okay, yeah, but he could rush the passer better than anybody else who's left. So why would we not take this guy? So I like the odds there. I like taking a chance on it. I'm going to go Mason Graham over 7.5. Minus 120 on DraftKings when I looked at that one. Mason Graham at this point is either going to go 5 to the Jags, which doesn't feel like it's going to happen anymore, or I think he's going beyond this. I don't think the Jets would take him at number 7. I think the Jets would either go Armand Membou if he is available or Tyler Warren if he is available. I feel like we're kind of coming around to that connection that we were so rock solid with, whatever it was, like a month and a half ago. I feel like it's now coming back to being able to manifest that. And so I just think that it's more likely that, one, it feels like there's a lot of steam toward Jacksonville drafting an offensive player instead of a defensive player. I don't think the Patriots are going to take him at 4. I don't think the Raiders would take him at number 6. And then it's basically, do I think the Jets are going to take him at 7? And I think no, over the players who I think are going to be available. One of Tyler Warren or Armand Membou is going to be available for them at number 7, and I think they go that direction. So that's why I kind of like this one. Is I feel better about him going to Carolina at number 8. Yeah. The Saints, new regime, Dennis Allen's not there, so like maybe they consider him, but he has not been their type when it comes to just bigger dudes, athletic dudes with a lot of length as well. Like, that's not Mason Graham. 10, he could go to the Chicago Bears. Certainly, I think the San Francisco 49ers would love him at number 11. So I just feel as though morning of the draft, it's more likely than not he's going above 7.5. So I think that the reality of what I think is going to happen tonight really influences this, along with it being somewhat close to even money here at minus 120.
It's kind of similar to what we talked about with the running backs, where the defensive tackle class is so deep that I don't think Mason Graham is quite viewed in the same way as Ashton Jeanty, as like a clear tier above in the defensive tackle class. So I could see him sliding. It seems like that's where it's going.
And, you know, you guys have spoken on it on this show numerous times. This Carolina Panthers team needs an entire defense. They're going to hit so many defensive spots. I think 8 is definitely his most likely landing spot for myself as well. So that 7.5 is going to make a lot of sense.
There we go. Those are 6 of our best bets that we have morning of night 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Appreciate everybody getting in on the chat, watching this show, being here for the draft hype early. Make sure you guys tune into the draft show that we have tonight starting at 7:45 p.m. Eastern right here on this very YouTube channel. Myself, Max Chadwick, Dalton Wasserman, and Chris Collinsworth will be on the desk for every single pick, giving you live analysis of the 2025 NFL Draft as it gets kicked off. For Mason Cameron, for Ben Linsey, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.